The stories of today will affect our tomorrow, and 2016 has been a historic year. We'll be looking at everything from the wars in West Asia to Bangladesh's growing extremism. Here in Europe, the ongoing migrant crisis that started in 2015 has caused increasing tensions over the continent and will likely have far-reaching repercussions in 2017. After Germany welcomed more than 1 million refugees, tensions started early in 2016. More than 1,000 women were assaulted during New Year's Eve celebrations in Cologne, Germany. Suspicions turned towards the country's large refugee population. In the weeks that followed, thousands of Germans protested Angela Merkel's open-door refugee policy. Although the majority of the perpetrators were never caught, many of the suspects were migrants. And increasingly, there was a worry across Europe that refugees didn't fit into European culture, and some might even be terrorists planning attacks. Then in March, coordinated suicide bombings hit Brussels airport and subway, killing 32 people. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility, and even though all the attackers were European-born, among the public, the eye of suspicion remained on refugees. The United Nations reported in June that the number of refugees worldwide had reached its highest point at 65.3 million people, greater than the previous record set in World War II. Shortly afterwards, Britain shocked its allies by voting to leave the European Union. The Brexit vote was largely seen as a way to take back control of its borders. It was a big political win for UKIP, the far-right party that repeatedly blamed the European Union for the number of immigrants in the UK. The deadliest attack of the year in Europe happened on July 14th, Bastille Day in Nice. A 19-ton truck deliberately drove into crowds celebrating France's National Day. 86 people were killed. The driver was a Tunisian immigrant, and Islamic State took credit for the attack. France then extended its state of emergency. 3 months later, French police moved over 5,600 migrants out of the Calais jungle camp in northern France, hoping to close it down permanently. The migrants, including hundreds of unaccompanied children, were bused to shelters throughout France before the jungle was bulldozed. On October 19th, Germany faced another crisis. A truck drove into crowds at a Christmas market in Berlin, killing 12 people. It had all the hallmarks of the Bastille Day attack. A strike not just on the people, but also the cultural fabric of the country. This attacker, too, was a Tunisian immigrant, and Islamic State said it was behind it. In 2016, human rights groups say at least 4,690 migrants have died in the Mediterranean Sea crossing in an attempt to reach Europe, making it the deadliest year on record. But the tide of tolerance has turned against migrants. Far-right political parties are capitalizing on this ill feeling and gaining momentum in the polls. There are federal elections in Germany next October, and the right-wing AfD party hopes to push out Angela Merkel. The party has stated Islam has no place in Germany and is promising stricter border controls. And France holds its presidential elections in May. The far-right candidate, Marine Le Pen, is both anti-immigration and anti-European Union. Her party, Le Front National, is promising protectionist policies for France. But these parties aren't offering a solution to the migrant problem, and it's clear the ongoing refugee crisis is being fueled by conflicts in Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq, and is unlikely to stop until those wars have been resolved. Now over to my colleague Anshul Vora, who's been following the developments in West Asia.
Boats on the Mediterranean travel far, but not for trade as in the glorious past, for safety. 2016 was a year of mayhem and chaos as the bloody wars continued. It was a year of huge loss of human life as those inspired by ISIS or directly connected to the terror group conducted attacks not just outside the Middle East but also within the region. Though that has brought some of the warring countries in the region closer, albeit momentarily. But in this Game of Thrones, there are many players and they have many moves, and they rarely show their hand. So what happened in the Middle East in 2016? and what are its challenges for the new year. We've picked up 6 countries for a wrap-up. Have a look. Aleppo was Assad's biggest victory since the Syrian conflict began 5 years ago. Regaining the historical city on 22nd December from ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates Jabhat al-Nusra, Assad shared the glory with Russia and Iran. The victory has strengthened Assad's claim to power in Syria, and in as early as mid-January, he would be on the talking table in Astana in Kazakhstan, along with Russia, Turkey and Iran to discuss Syria's future. Washington and Brussels have gone soft on the demand of Assad's ouster, but Saudi Arabia and Qatar have not. Turkey may be okay with a transitional role for Assad, but nothing more. The expansion of ISIS, though, has presented these warring nations with a binary choice. What matters more? The search for that answer will continue in 2017. But the attention of the world will soon turn to the ISIS capital of Raqqa in Syria. And once the cities are retaken, the towns and villages controlled by the group of radical Islamists will continue to bleed. Assad had said he's no Gaddafi. He won't let Syria turn into Libya. But what is left of Syria after over 5 years of war? The bloody war has left 400,000 people dead and turned 4.8 million Syrians into refugees. Obama government's parting slap to Israel has been an unprecedented move by any US government. America abstained from a UN vote challenging Israeli settlements and calling these settlements a flagrant violation under the international law and a major blow to the two-state peace deal. President-elect Trump, though, feels differently. He will take the US back into Israel's arms and will send a pro-Israeli settlements Jewish American, David Friedman, to Israel as ambassador. But ISIS and the war in Syria may have won Israel frenemies in the Muslim world. Arab states against Assad may go softer on Israel. As a sign of things to come, perhaps, Israel has sent a new ambassador to Turkey. The last one was expelled in 2011. Turkey has seen 22 terror attacks in 2016, killing over 360 people. An alleged coup attempt, thousands of incarcerations by the Erdogan government, support to Assad's ally Russia and hence Assad in the war against ISIS, a group Turkey is accused of funding and supporting. Seen on the side of Saudi Arabia and Qatar against Assad, Turkey first facilitated entry of ISIS fighters into Syria, but later bore the brunt as the terror attacks in Turkey were claimed not just by pro-Kurdish independence groups, but also the ISIS. Turkey was forced to crack a deal with Russia, Assad's friend, to deal with anti-Turkey Kurds, and even the assassination of Russia's ambassador hasn't impacted the understanding. Turkey's challenge in 2017 will be in dealing with the US, which promised the Kurdish fighters support as they fought the hard battles against ISIS on the ground, and making concessions for Bashar al-Assad against the wishes of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Libya stands as the biggest blow to America's Middle East policy, a case in point of how wrong the US and the West have been in their Middle East calculations. Since the ouster of Gaddafi, the North African country has split into many parts. The 10th oil-rich nation has many contenders and at least 2 governments, one in Tripoli, which is backed by the UN, the US and the EU, and the other in Tobruk. But vast parts of Libya are out of the control of either. Russia has entered the Libyan theatre too. Asserting itself, Moscow announced support for army commander Khalifa Haftar. He is in conflict with the UN-backed government in Tripoli and controls the largest part of Libyan territory that Russia says makes him a serious contender in the power game. A bigger challenge in Libya, experts in the Middle East say, is resolution to the political crisis, which is a prerequisite to eradicating the ISIS. Unless the political mess is cleaned up, ISIS and other terror groups will continue to utilize the vacuum and cause havoc. And the forgotten war of Yemen. More than 6,800 people have been killed and 35,000 injured in Yemen since 2015. but this hasn't had the global attention like the war in Syria. It's being fought between the government of President Mansour and the Houthi rebels. While the president is backed by the Saudis and the West, Houthis have Iran support. This less known and reported on conflict has left 80% of the population in need of aid. As Saudi Arabia and its Arab allies showered bombs in Yemen, the US, the UK and France provided this coalition logistical and intelligence support. In October, the Iraqi forces, backed by the Pentagon, marched to Mosul, making significant gains in a major ISIS stronghold. The elite Iraqi unit fighting the terrorists head-on, the Golden Division, has been credited with defeating the ISIS in Ramadi in 2014 and Fallujah later. But the fight for Mosul has turned out to be tougher than thought. The door-to-door fight has destroyed at least 50% of the Golden Division, leading to fears that even when it defeats Baghdadi in Mosul, it may not be left combat ready for the post-ISIS scenario in 2017. The future of the Middle East in 2017 depends on how effectively will the forces, whether Russia or the United States, eradicate ISIS, both in Mosul and in Raqqa. But it would, to a large extent, also depend on America's policy for the Middle East. There is little clarity on what Donald Trump wants to do. Will he, as he said, stop the game of forced regime change? How will the bromance between Putin and Trump play out? Will the United States happily share the power in the Middle Eastern theater with Russia? It is also quite significant that Saudi Arabia is very upset with the United States over the US-Iran nuclear deal. Is Trump going to go back and walk along with Saudi Arabia? The big question is, will the powers that be bet on curbing Sunni-Shia rivalry, or will go down the same path? Because if it does not reduce, it helps ISIS and groups like ISIS, which isn't just a problem in the Middle East or Europe, but across the world, including South Asia. 60 Indians have gone to ISIS-held areas hoping to fight along with them. We've also learnt that a Pakistani handler is sitting in Turkey recruiting South Asian youth for ISIS. A lethal attack that occurred in Bangladesh was claimed by ISIS. For more on that, we have stories coming up. Right after this is my colleague Saad from Dhaka.
Under cover of religious virtues, terrorism seeks to lend local and personal grievances a global perspective. 2016 has held many shocks for Bangladesh. It was the year that confirmed the penetration of extremist ideologies among youths, women, and others who were not suspected of such radicalization so far. 1st of July 2016. A multinational crowd is dining at the Hole Artisan Bakery Cafe in a diplomatic enclave of Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh. This is when terrorists walk in and create mayhem that Bangladesh should struggle to forget. The attackers took hostages and exchanged gunfire with police until soldiers moved in and killed the militants. 21 people inside the cafe were killed, along with 2 police officers and 4 terrorists. The slain victims included 9 Italians, 7 Japanese, 1 Indian, 3 Bangladeshis, and 1 US citizen of Bangladeshi origin. The incident broke many notions. A typical assessment for militancy in Bangladesh has been a case of poverty and illiteracy. But now the profile of the terrorists has changed. The youths held responsible for the attacks come from educated and affluent backgrounds, with at least 3 of the attackers coming from top universities and schools. Even the current chief of Al-Qaeda's local affiliate Ansar al-Islam is Syed Ziaul Haq, a former major who was sacked from the Bangladesh army in 2011. Dhaka's counter-terrorist forces neutralized Zahidul Islam, another former major who was one of the leaders of the Neo Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh.
With all these new challenges which have come to the fore, we have to be better prepared to meet the threat. As we look at the various new elements in the threat of violent extremism that I had mentioned, one aspect that has become very prominent is the use of cyberspace for radicalization. So we must find new ways and means of tackling this problem.
Security forces launched 9 operations and neutralized 28 suspected militants following the attack in July. Yet there is an awkward silence in the atmosphere where security analysts fear that the possibility of more attacks cannot be ruled out. The one common thread connecting all this is the rampant radicalization and growing religious intolerance. Even before the terror attacks, Bangladesh has been a witness to surge in targeted killings of individuals such as journalists, bloggers, and secular minds. The ability of the state to respond to these extremist threats will be key to how Bangladesh will shape up in 2017. Growing terrorism in Bangladesh has become a perfect case study of how unrestricted radicalization in a society ends up becoming a Frankenstein's monster, a more pronounced version of which is on display on the other side of the subcontinent. Over to my colleague Taha Siddiqui, who's on the ground in Islamabad.
Many in Pakistan say that the worst days are over and good days are ahead. And the facts point to the same, given that there has been a significant drop in terrorist attacks. What has been the takeaway from this year? More in this report by WION's Pakistan Bureau. 2016 was relatively calm for Pakistan. The country saw 45% lesser attacks and 38% fewer deaths as per the Global Terrorism Index 2016. The Pakistan Army consolidated its gains in military operations against militant groups. However, the year also saw a few deadly bombings, especially targeting civilian population. In recent months, local terror networks like that of the Pakistani Taliban have started to link themselves with Islamic State group. At least 2 attacks have been claimed by the Syria-based group. 2016 was also the year where Mullah Mansoor, Afghan Taliban's chief, was killed in a US drone strike in Balochistan province. Pakistan came under global criticism as Mansoor was found traveling with Pakistani identity papers. This further deteriorated the relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan, with President Ashraf Ghani lashing out at Pakistan's role in promoting militancy in his homeland. Another deterioration of bilateral relations happened on Pakistan's eastern border, where cross-border firing has claimed lives of dozens of civilians and soldiers. Terrorist attacks in Indian Kashmir led to a strong response from Indian military with a claim of a surgical strike inside Pakistan-controlled territory. Islamabad has rejected these claims. The Indus Water Treaty between the two neighbors has also come under pressure, with India threatening to stop downstream supply, which led to Pakistan lodging protests with international watchdogs. 2016 also saw the end of General Rahil Sharif's era, who has been regarded as the most popular army chief in Pakistan's recent history. As 2016 comes to a close, the border skirmishes have almost died out. Will 2017 be once again dominated by Pakistan-India tensions? My colleague in New Delhi, Kartika Sharma, will give you a sense of how these developments were seen in India.
Like the previous year and the one before, 2016 saw the dominance of one factor, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The way he dealt with his neighbors and also left a strong imprint on the domestic constituency.
A string of terrorist attacks, ceasefire violations, and infiltration attempts. The year couldn't have got any worse for India and Pakistan, the two South Asian nuclear-armed neighbors who are in a perpetual state of proxy war. The attack on the Indian Air Force base at Pathankot in the northern Indian state of Punjab bruised the relationship early on in the year. Tensions rose in July after Indian armed forces shot down a separatist in Jammu and Kashmir who was associated with Hizbul Mujahideen, a designated terrorist organization. And matters came to a head in September after 19 Indian soldiers were killed by terrorists at Uri in Jammu and Kashmir. India responded with a surgical strike across the line of control, taking out launch pads used by terrorists to infiltrate into India. The India-Pakistan hostilities came on the back of 2 very successful visits to Pakistan by the Indian leaders in December of 2015, Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj travelled to Islamabad to announce the resumption of the comprehensive bilateral dialogue. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India made a dramatic stopover at Lahore on his way back from Afghanistan to wish Nawaz Sharif on his birthday. India cited the two visits to suggest that it had tried all it could under the circumstances to talk peace with Pakistan, but all it got in return were more terrorist attacks accompanied by a loss of lives of both civilians and soldiers. The surgical strike was teamed up with the cancellation of the SAARC summit in Pakistan and a heightened rhetoric on Balochistan by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The India-Pakistan diplomatic wrangling continued at international fora, including the United Nations General Assembly.
But 2017 can be a different ballgame. The political churn of the year 2016 is all set to impact the way India is going to shape up this year. In 2016, the Kashmir Valley changed in an unbelievable way, almost when India was convinced that a new normal has been reached under the BJP-PDP alliance. The facade of normalcy crumbled before the Leviathan state. Children joined the protests to be pulverized by the pellet guns. The violence erupted after terrorist Burhan Wani's encounter, who was already a poster boy for the extremists. Though the violence subsided, Valley is still struggling to return to normalcy. The administration in Kashmir continues to grapple with protests. Mehbooba Mufti, the Chief Minister of Kashmir, inherited a functional administration, and what is left of it today is a paralyzed system. Resumption of normalcy would be a test of her political abilities in 2017. 2016 also saw another woman deal with conflict in her own way. Iron Lady, Irom Sharmila, ended her decade-long hunger strike against what she calls the Draconian Armed Forces Special Powers Act. To top it, she has decided to fight the upcoming elections in Manipur. Political parties have welcomed the act as it sent a powerful signal to agitating communities in the northeast. Speaking of women, the year 2016 also saw passing away of ADMK leader and Tamil Nadu's Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha. Her passing away has created a huge vacuum in Tamil Nadu's politics. It's all the more significant since Jayalalitha managed to retain power during the assembly elections, and her absence is all set to affect the results of presidential election in 2017. How will the ADMK deal with an assertive centre? That will be the focus for 2017. Sticking to the theme of influential women of 2016, Mamata Banerjee too retained power in West Bengal and will be a crucial ingredient of any opposition grouping against the centre. But the biggest battle of 2017 will take place on the dusty grounds of Uttar Pradesh. Mayawati is expected to make a comeback, even as the Samajwadi Party flirts with parties like Congress and Rashtriya Lok Dal. Congress will also try to dethrone the Akali Dal in Punjab, but there is also the challenge from the Aam Aadmi Party. All in all, 2017 will be another year where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have his task cut out. India is the fastest growing economy in the world. Whatever India does has a bearing on the world. On this, I hand it over to my colleague Sumit Chaturvedi, who will give a roundup from the world of business.
The year 2016 is ending with a lot of business still unfinished. The after effects of the drive started by Prime Minister Modi by scrapping of 500 and 1000 rupees notes will be seen next year also. The crucial reform of goods and services tax was passed by Parliament this year but will be implemented in 2017. And also next year, the whole world will await crucial policy decisions taken by new US President Donald Trump. The whole of 2017 economy will be an after effect of 2016 as demonetization is likely to hit growth for the next 3 quarters and affect business. But 2017 can also see a revolution in digital payments with a large chunk of population expected to reduce use of currency. Flush with extra revenues, the government can do big-time social spending, boosting demand. Life in 2017 in several important ways will be about demonetization only. GST will be another reason for which 2016 will be remembered. With a few GST bills still pending in Parliament, the biggest tax reform of India will be a major unfinished business from 2016. A single market would cut logistics costs, increase tax revenue and raise inflation in the short term. With no consensus on sharing of administrative powers, 2017 will now decide the final shape of GST. Donald Trump as the US president comes at a time when India is seeking closer ties with the US. Trump's chemistry with Prime Minister Modi is surely going to reconfigure India's diplomatic strategy, especially in the subcontinent and with regard to China. 2017 will also see how Trump's visa policies impact Indian IT business. Trump has promised to reduce the US corporate tax from 35 to 15%. This could lead to several American companies rushing back to US, hitting the Make in India program. 2017 will show how the new warmth in Indo-US ties will impact India in various spheres. One of the most significant legacy of 2016 is the Brexit vote. UK's decision to leave European Union will define UK and EU's politics going forward in 2017 also. And nobody is quite sure how it will pan out. Since we are talking about Brexit, let us go back to the place where we started from. Over to my colleague, Mandy Clark in London.
Thanks, Sumit. Brexit will likely continue to take center stage in 2017 as Britain triggers Article 50 early in the year and sets in motion its formal divorce from the European Union. It could turn out to be an expensive move for the public desire for border control. Tightening borders was a key platform issue for Donald Trump's election campaign. His presidency will start in January and promises to court controversy with his own style of leadership. The issues that matter to the world, wars, refugees, economy, and the environment, are all part of an interwoven world, and WION is here to help you make the connection and see the bigger picture. That's it from us. Thanks for watching.